Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Guys, for over 3 years, Ukraine has been fighting for its survival against Russia's full-scale invasion. Cities have been destroyed, thousands have died, and millions have been displaced. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has led the resistance, rallying support from the West and refusing to surrender an inch of his country. But now there is a new challenge, not from the Russia, but from his own allies. Several Western leaders are hinting at a ceasefire, a move that could freeze the war and force Ukraine to accept Russian occupation of its territories. And Zelensky is furious about this. Why is he rejecting peace talks? What does he fear could happen if a ceasefire is agreed upon? And why are Western nations suddenly shifting their stance on the war? Let's break it down all in this video. Now let's see the ceasefire warnings. What's exactly happening? Recently, Western officials, including USA and European leaders, have signaled that Ukraine may need to consider negotiations with Russia. Reports suggest that behind the closed doors, some allies are losing patience with Ukraine's war efforts. Here is what's fueling this shift. First is stalemate on the battlefield. Ukraine's highly anticipated counter-offensive in 2023 failed to deliver a major breakthrough. Despite months of intense fighting, Russia still holds the larger portions of eastern and southern Ukraine. Second is war fatigue in the West. Billions of dollars have been spent on military aid, but public support in the US and Europe is waning. Some leaders are now prioritizing their own economic and security concerns over Ukraine's war efforts. Third is the political landscape in US. With Trump in office, many feared that Donald Trump, who has been critical of Ukraine aid, could return to power and cut off the support. Fourth is Russia's growing military advantage. Despite Western sanctions, Russia has ramped up its weapons production, recruited thousands of soldiers, and fortified its positions. Some believe that without a dramatic shift, Ukraine cannot win this war. As a result, Western leaders are suggesting that Ukraine consider a truce, but Zelensky sees this as a betrayal. So, guys, why Zelensky is furious over this? For Zelensky, a ceasefire would be nothing short of a disaster, as it would legitimate Russia's land grab. Russia currently occupies about 18% of Ukraine's territory, including Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. So, a ceasefire now would freeze the conflict with Russia in control of these areas, effectively rewarding its invasion. It would embolden Putin to attack again. Zelensky warns that any pause in fighting would allow Russia to regroup, rearm, and launch another invasion later. Many fear a repeat of what happened after 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea and later launched a full scale invasion in 2022. It would demoralize the Ukrainian forces. Over 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers have died defending their country. Accepting a ceasefire now would undermine their sacrifice and signal to Russia that war crimes and aggression come with no consequences. It would weaken the Ukraine's global position. Zelensky has worked tirelessly to rally international support, secure military aid, and strengthen Ukraine's position on the world stage. So, agreeing to a ceasefire under pressure would weaken the Ukraine's leverage in the future negotiations. For Zelensky, there is only one acceptable outcome: full Ukrainian victory with Russia completely withdrawing from the occupied territories. And he is making that clear to the world itself. Now, what is the Zelensky response on this? Fighting back against the pressure. Zelensky isn't backing down, he is pushing back against ceasefire talks with strong warnings to the West. He has openly rejected any peace deal that involves territorial concessions. In a recent speech, he declared a ceasefire that allows Russia to keep Ukrainian land is not a peace. It is just a pause before the next war. He is calling out Western leaders for wavering in their support. Zelensky has urged the USA and Europe to stay committed to helping Ukraine win, not just survive. He warns that any sign of weakness from the West will not encourage Putin. He is pushing for more weapons, not the negotiations. Instead of discussing peace talks, Zelensky is demanding more long range missiles, air defense systems, and fighter jets to strengthen the Ukraine's counteroffensive. He believes that with the right military support, Ukraine can still push Russia back. He is reaching out to the new allies. Knowing that Western support may fade, Zelensky is building stronger ties with the countries like Japan, South Korea, and Middle Eastern nations to secure new sources of aid and weapons. So, guys, what is Russia's reaction on this? What is Putin's strategy? While Ukraine rejects a ceasefire, Russia has strategically welcomed the idea. Putin knows that a ceasefire would give Russia time to rebuild. If fighting stops now, Russia keeps all its occupied land and has time to reinforce its military for a future attack. Moscow is using peace talks to divide the West. Putin hopes that growing war fatigue in the US and Europe will create rifts between Ukraine and its allies. Russia is ramping up the propaganda. Russian media is already speaking narratives that Ukraine is losing and the West is abandoning it. So, what is the goal of this? Break the Ukraine's morale and push its citizens to accept Russian rule. Zelensky understands these games and that's why he refuses to play along. So the big question here is what happens next? Will Western leaders continue supporting Ukraine or will they push harder for a ceasefire? Here is what could happen. If Ukraine gets more advanced weapons, it still turn the tide and force Russia into a real peace talks on Ukraine's terms. If Western support fades, Ukraine could struggle to hold the front lines and a forced ceasefire may become inevitable. If the USA reduces military aid under a new administration, Ukraine may have to rely on Europe and other allies for the survival. So Zelensky's fight isn't just about Russia, it's also against the time and political shifts in the West. The future of Ukraine depends on whether the world stands with it or chooses to move on. So, guys, that's it for today. This war isn't just about the Ukraine, it's about the future of global security. If Russia is allowed to keep occupied Ukrainian territory, what stops other nations from doing the same? If Putin succeeds, what message does that send to China about the Taiwan or to the North Korea about South Korea? Zelensky isn't just fighting for the Ukraine. He is fighting to prove that aggression, war crimes and land grabs cannot go unpunished. But will his allies hold the line or will a pressure for the ceasefire force Ukraine into an uneasy, dangerous peace? The world is watching and we also, and the stakes couldn't be higher. So, guys, if you found this deep dive helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. And also comment your thoughts in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video.